Growing a business is exciting, and it's full of challenges.
The biggest challenge an entrepreneur has in growing his business is bouncing back every time he falls down, because he's going to fall down again and again. He needs to keep getting up.
Our biggest challenge was raising money.
Well, the biggest challenge once we raised the capital was making those dollars stretch.
The toughest challenge for entrepreneurs is to remain flexible while being very focused.
If you've got a great idea that you really believe in, there's 3 P's that are very important: persistence, persistence, and persistence.
We'll tackle one entrepreneur's challenge and get solutions from great mentors that could help you grow your business. Stay with us. A special Money Hunt is next. Money Hunt is brought to you by Excite. Money Hunt is also made possible by Register.com, a first step for businesses and individuals starting their presence on the internet. And Jordan Industries, acquirers and builders of entrepreneurial ventures in a variety of industries.
Welcome to Money Hunt's Small Business Challenge, where the best business minds take on America's small business problems. I'm Miles Spencer. You remember that movie, Good Will Hunting? Well, one of the writers, Matt Damon, also got to star in the movie. Wouldn't it be great to write in and star in and pull together your own movie deal? Well, yeah, but most of the movies we see are put together by large studios that have huge budgets capable of seeing their projects through to fruition. That, candidly, is our entrepreneur's problem. And here to tell us about it is Robin Schatz from Business Week Frontier. Robin?
Thanks, Miles. Independent filmmaker Julie Lynch is already a step ahead of most young artists. She's already made the movie of her dreams. Her problem now is figuring out how to raise more capital so she can get this project finished and move on, and doing it without losing her equity.
We've got a film clip. Let's have a look.
Julie A. Lynch never planned on becoming an independent filmmaker. The script for her own life was much more pragmatic. In college, she acted in plays but majored in accounting. Hello? After graduation, she headed for Wall Street.
Okay. I'd worked really hard. Yeah, it was the 80s, so the hours were insane. I was so burned out at that point, and I had some money saved from some good bonuses, so I decided that I would do something fun. And I thought back to, I remember thinking, what have I ever done that was actually really fun? And I remembered really liking acting in college, so I thought, well, I'll become an actress.
Before long, Lynch was cast in numerous independent films, but she realized that she didn't like memorizing other people's lines. She wanted to be a writer herself. When her 2-part magazine piece about 3 female friends going for an AIDS test was killed by her editors, Lynch was so haunted by the story that she turned it into a screenplay. It's called Getting Off, an emotional and gritty story that explores women's lives and sexuality.
Primarily, my film focuses on one woman who is caught in an addictive cycle of compulsive drinking and sleeping with abusive men. And she has an epiphany throughout the film that makes her realize that she needs to take better care of herself.
What am I supposed to do? I can't follow every kid home. I report what I see. The rest is up to social services.
After a movie studio dropped Lynch's project, she decided to make the film herself. With the help of savvy advisors, she raised more than $500,000 from private investors.
It's okay.
Manhattan is filled with young hopefuls like Julie Lynch, who dream that their low-budget flick will be the next great indie film success story. But the reality is much starker. It's expensive to make a movie, and very few scripts actually ever get produced. Much fewer of them make it to the screen.
Ask him where he was Saturday night.
Josie, come on.
And Monday night.
Not only is it about making the film, but then how do you get that film out into the world?
How could I? Ask your precious brother how he could.
Josie, get out.
I heard a statistic that only 1 out of every 45,000 film projects gets made. And that out of that small amount, that small number, only 5% of them get seen. So if you look at it that way, distribution is really probably the hardest part.
Lynch received high praise for her movie at the 1998 Toronto International Film Festival. But good reviews don't pay the bills, and Lynch has used up all her money. To get this film out to the audience she's certain is there and give her current investors a reasonable return, Lynch needs to raise more funds, even if it means giving up equity.
Until I get the movie out there, I'm not going to, I don't have a chance of turning a profit. So for me, I'd much rather give up a significant degree of my equity and get the movie out there so I can pay everybody back.
Lynch has made a film she's really proud of, but she knows it won't be an easy sell to investors.
I have to go to completely new resources, so it's going to take a different kind of ingenuity. And the first time it was really expressing my enthusiasm to a lot of people who knew who I was and knew who my producers were and believed in us. Now I have to go out into the world and find people who believe not just in us, but in what we're doing.
Julie Lynch may be passionate about her art, but this is a good time for her to remember her Wall Street roots. If she's going to get the funding that she needs, she must be prepared to give up more equity and answer tough financial questions from her investors. You can bet they won't be focused on her plot development or character line. They'll be focused on the bottom line.
Hey, Money Hunt, I need to raise more money, and I need to raise it now to finish my film and get it out into the world. The question is, how do I raise that money without hurting my current investors who have been so good to me and so loyal through this entire process? Now, I have a 21% equity share, and I am more than happy to give that away to the new investors if that will help to protect my old investors. But the question is, am I being short-sighted by giving away my own equity share in order to get that money?
Nice piece, Robin. Boy, it's a common problem, but that doesn't make it any easier, does it?
No, but I think what Julie has going for her, besides her enormous talent and energy, is that she does understand business, and she's really realistic and willing to listen to advisors who can help her.
It's that accounting background helping her out. We're going to meet Julie and our experts right after this short break.
The entrepreneurial life is truly la vida loca, with long hours and crippling pressure. Why spend years building a breakaway business if you're not going to live to enjoy the fruits of your labor? As busy as you are, remember to eat and exercise regularly, get at least some sleep, wear clean clothes, and watch your health.
Welcome back to the Small Business Challenge. Let's meet our guests. First, New York-based film producer Julie Lynch. Julie, thanks for coming on Money Hunt and sharing your story with us.
I'm grateful to be here.
Here are your experts that we've pulled together. First, Stephen Haft, who's a prolific movie and television producer and producer of one of my favorites, Dead Poets Society. Stephen also sits on the board of the Sundance Institute. And Karen Levinson, who is currently in private practice, previously with HBO as Vice President of Business Affairs. Our purpose here is to ask additional questions and learn more. Why don't we start it with Steve?
Julie, do you have investors presently who are waiting to see whether or not the film's going to get distribution? What are their expectations, and what do you feel you owe them?
Well, I do have many investors. I have about 42 investors. There are a lot of them, and they're all waiting very, very patiently, but I think their patience understandably is beginning to wear thin, and I feel incredibly indebted to them because they believed in me when, for all accounts and purposes, there was no reason to believe in me. I didn't have a track record at all.
Let's try to quantify this. Your project calls for how much money at this point?
Well, the production, what I want to do is get my film out into the world.
Right.
Okay. There are many different ways to do that. If I could do it the way that I would love to do it, which is get it on a lot of screens across the nation, the production would need $1 million.
Okay.
I could get it on less screens for, say, $500,000.
And can you scale it back further from there?
Well, sure. The production will definitely take what it can get.
Okay.
Have you thought about not raising this money through investors, but perhaps
through other sources? Have you thought about selling other rights in the film? For example, foreign sales, so that you could then fund a theatrical release in the United States?
We actually did go down that road, and what we found is that the foreign sales companies, or the distributors in Europe and around the world, they really relate first to the domestic release. That's so important to them, to know that it's getting a domestic release, because that's what makes it valuable in Europe. I had hoped that was not true, and we did go down that route. We showed it at the market at Cannes, we showed it at MeFed, and because we don't have big movie stars, we've got great actors, but we don't have big movie stars, their take was, well, let's see what it does in the United States.
What have you done to get the film in front of U.S. distributors?
Well, we screened the film in front of most of the majors. Because we had screened a rough cut, some of the majors haven't seen it. There were a few that were not interested in seeing it a second time because they felt like they'd already seen the rough cut, though the rough cut is 1,000% different.
Are there opportunities perhaps to, because of the social issues that you cover in the film, perhaps premiere it in a fundraising event around whether it's gay men's health crisis or something like that? Have you tried to pursue that distribution option?
Miles, I think that's an incredible idea, and I have been actually speaking to some charities that deal, well, charities is not the right word, but foundations that deal with rape crisis.
Okay.
And I have a number of different rape crisis organizations that are very interested in being a part of the project. And I'm currently trying to put together a soundtrack that I could give all the proceeds, all the profits,
Gotcha.
to some of these rape crisis foundations.
Do you feel you need to tie this project up with a bow before moving on to another project?
You know, unfortunately, I do, and that's probably not the best thing for my career, but I have not been able to let go of it, because I made this movie because I wanted people to see it. And I spent many years on this project. From the day that I started writing it until today, it's over 6 years. It's actually closer to 7 years. And getting it into the public eye is the most important thing to me, more important than making my next movie.
Understand. You feel you're more aligned with producing movies, or the issues that you covered in this one, which you've spent 7 years on by your own admission?
I think I'm most aligned with expression. And however you do that, or however I do that, that's the most important thing to me. And I think my most favorite way of doing that is through movies.
Follow-up question, last one, Steve.
Do you think that your investors are expecting a return on their money, or did they put the money behind you to launch your career?
I think they want their money back.
At the very least, they want recoupment.
Yeah, do they expect a tremendous profit? I think in the beginning they thought they might be able to get something fantastic, because one of the producers had an amazing track record. But at this point, I think they would be very happy to get their money back, or perhaps half of their money back.
There you go. Karen, last question.
Would you consider any method other than theatrical distribution? Would you consider television, or straight-to-video cassette, or some form like that?
1,000%, 1,000%. Whatever I can do to get it into the public eye, the most eyes in the public. However, what I found is that without a theatrical release, the money with cable and the money with video is not significant enough to recover the investment.
So, Julie, we're going to have a brainstorming session, but first, before we do that, I want to make sure we cover the right subjects that can help you the most. One, exhaust every option for distribution that allows you to move forward. Two, reconcile your relationship with your investors and set up your next project that allows you enough to move on solid ground with another one. Is there anything else you'd like us to cover in our brainstorm?
The most important thing to me is getting the movie into the world.
There you go, great. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our experts brainstorm right after this.
What does it take to be a great entrepreneur? America's top business experts speak out.
What makes a great entrepreneur, I think, is the ability to define between having passion and execution ability.
You have to figure out how to live through the early stages of your company's development when you have a tough time raising money, you have a tough time finding people to work with you, you have a tough time convincing your customers your product works. You've got to survive.
Don't give up on the first or second or third sales pitch. Understand what the timing is. Take advantage of the timing.
Welcome back to the challenge. It's time for our brainstorming session. Let's get right to it and try to stick to what Julie wanted to get out of it. Steve, your comments.
First, Julie's made a terrific film. You have to start with that, because our options would be much more limited. I mean, we've seen the film. and our options would be much more limited if the film didn't bring to it the quality that Julie's brought to this film as a director. Her actors are great, it's a great story, and it's about something. I would think this would be a very strong sale, Karen, I don't know what you think, to cable at a minimum, possibly to a theatrical distributor. I have to believe she hasn't tried hard enough.
I think that's absolutely right. I think she may have to almost defer the idea of theatrical distribution for a while. She can do a cable release, she can get it out there, she can get good press on cable, and then she can go back and do a theatrical distribution if it happens after that.
At HBO, you all had the famous example of
The Last Seduction.
Ace, and also Aces, right? It was called Aces, and then it was called The Great Santini.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think she can absolutely. She needs to get this seen by people. It's a great film. You're absolutely right. It is remarkable that she's made this for the money that she raised. It's really a good piece of work, and I think she has to work at getting it out there more.
Robin, you were there to see her. Anything you can add?
Well, I want to start by saying she is passionate about this, and I think it came clear here today that this is a movie that she cares about deeply. She wants to get it out there, and I think she's willing to make compromises to get it there. Maybe it won't be a theatrical distribution. But she told me this morning that she had just sunk another $10,000 of her own money, which she borrowed, to get this, to keep it going. And so clearly something else needs to happen now for her to move forward.
She really believes in this business. Sometimes, I've heard the phrase, you don't make your first film to make money, you make your first film to make your second film. But she is so passionate about this. One of the things that we covered offline, I was surprised, her website, or the opportunities for her to syndicate her content to web, possibly around a fundraiser. We mentioned having her movie premiere at a fundraiser, but there are several websites that cover these communities. She has great content which can be very, very sticky for those communities to continue to come back, have a reason to go back and chat, tying in those communities that are raising a significant amount of money on Wall Street right now because they've got .com after their names. Tie that in with a release for a fundraiser on the big screen, and you may have a little bit of a spark there. So that's one place. I'm surprised she hadn't pursued.
Miles, there you have to separate the two goals. Is this about getting the film out, getting it seen, getting her next job, or is this about getting those investors paid back? In her piece, she talked about feeling obligated to those investors. Now, putting it on the internet isn't going to bring any money back. I mean, as we all know, the internet economy has done any number of things in terms of exit strategies, but it hasn't generated a lot of income back for anybody.
But I think she can use it, and I think she can use the cable sale or the video sale as a spark plug, as a marketing tool, and she can still reserve the theatrical rights. She can make some foreign sales on this and get some money in to keep it going. It may not be as much money as she'd get if she had a U.S. theatrical release,
Karen,
but I'm sure she can sell it.
You mentioned the foreign sales, Karen, but when we brought that up with her, she said, yeah, we had made some attempts at the foreign sales, but if you don't release in the United States, the foreign sales just don't happen because they all look to the United States as the keystroke.
I think if she's thinking of a major theatrical release, I think if she releases it on television foreign, if she goes straight to television, if she does a video and television deal in certain countries, I think she can do quite well.
These days, 70% of the foreign income from the major territories comes from the demand of their television sales rather than the theatrical and video sales in any event. And I think they are less dependent on the American release success than they are, used to be.
And I think there's no question that a major U.S. theatrical release will drive the foreign, but a small independent U.S. theatrical release, I'm not sure will have that much effect on her foreign sales.
Now back to from the investor side, she mentioned a couple of different numbers that would make her investors whole or settle them and make them happy enough. Raising money from them probably isn't an option. Raising money from new folks may not be an option either. The things that you're discussing, can that add enough additional capital to make some sort of a settlement with what she's got today?
It may not add enough to pay everybody off, no. I think that is a real problem, but I think what she needs to do is to do the best deal she can, pay off as much as she can, and then move on. She's very talented, and this is an excellent, excellent film, and I think she needs to make the best she can out of it and then move on.
And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think Karen and I would both agree that between what we would estimate this film might bring in foreign as well as video cassette and cable here, we're talking about several $100,000 that could come back.
Especially, I think, if you manage to do a couple of benefit screenings, which I think is a great idea.
Create a little buzz for it.
Exactly, exactly.
Great. Thank you so much for your input. We're going to take a short break, come back with our recommendations from the brainstorm to Julie, who'll be back right after this.
When starting a business, you must identify the crucial activities on which the success of your business depends. These you must do yourself, as no one else will care as much as you do that they be done correctly. All other activities, the ones that are not mission critical, must be delegated to others.
Welcome back to the challenge. Julie's back. It's time for our recommendations. Steve, why don't you start in?
Julie, we've considered the amount of money you have into the film and the quality of the film and where you've been. Our view is that the place to go now and focus is on cable rather than theatrical release. We think that there are 4 or 5 cable companies who would look at this movie and pay you something in the 6-figure range for cable rights alone, still leaving you domestically other television, the possibility of a theatrical release. There are 2 films that aired on HBO that subsequently went theatrical, home video, which is really the big piece of the pie these days, and foreign rights. That's the way to go. Start with your domestic cable sale and make your subsequent sales based on the success of having gotten the seal of approval of a domestic major cable company.
Good way to raise capital and not giving up anything because of no new investors. Go ahead.
Well, I think you may also want to think about completion financing, and there are some companies that specifically provide last monies to finance a film. They'll help you finish the editing process. They'll help you even set up the sales process with it. In connection with that, you may also want to think about a godfather, or perhaps godmother would be more appropriate in this case for the film, but an established either an actor, director, or producer or production entity that would take the film under his or her wing and would help you really get it out there and have it seen where it needs to be seen.
Julie, from my perspective, I want to hook you up with one of the dot-com companies that specializes in the issues that your movie covers, and use that to play off what you're developing in terms of your soundtrack. Use that as a way to create maybe an event where you can screen your movie and do it as a fundraiser. It allows you to sell your soundtrack, but in addition to that, your content syndicated to somebody's website will create stickiness for them around a subject and put together a core constituency which they can use and sell advertising and products to, but you can use down the line to leverage your film in other ways. Now, you've heard an awful lot of advice today and your head's probably spinning, but one of the keys to being a great entrepreneur is being able to filter that all and focus on what you can use tomorrow to start your day and take action. Based on what you've heard, what are you going to do tomorrow?
Well, I think all the advice is great, and I definitely see the importance of getting it out into the world. That's been my top priority anyway. I think I'd like to really take Karen's point of view, and number one, a godmother would be fantastic. Right. And if I can get specific suggestions for godmothers, that would be the first phone call I would make tomorrow morning. But I think also the completion financing so that I can actually get it perfectly finished in order to get it to cable. Mm-hmm. So it really would be first godmother and see what that would do for me, and then completion financing, and then getting it into cable, and hope that perhaps I could eventually do a domestic theatrical release.
Karen, do you have some places where you think you can bring her?
I think I can make some suggestions for you.
That's great. Now, Karen, one of the things you mentioned in your segment was you wanted to do something that you loved after coming from Wall Street. Do you still love this business, or are there some things that you've grown to hate about it?
I never thought it would be this hard. Making the movie was easy compared to the distribution aspect. Making the movie was apple pie compared to the distribution. But I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Well, that's commitment. Thank you so much for coming in to share your story on the challenge. And thanks to our experts, Stephen Haft and Karen Levinson. Stephen, any last comments?
Never say die, Julie.
That's a good one. Karen?
Don't try and do it all at once. Take it in small pieces, and I think you'll get there.
There we go. Great. If our advice can help you, our detailed recommendations are available on our website at www.moneyhunt.com. Just click on Small Business Challenge. Because whether you're taking the first step or the next step from growing your business from a small business to a big one, you might get the advice you need right here on Money Hunt.
Starting or growing your own business? Miles and Cliff have 27 rules to help you succeed. Based on actual events from our Money Hunt guests, this book is full of timeless stories and valuable lessons for today's entrepreneur. Purchase your copy by calling 1-800-925-0745. For $25 plus $3 shipping and handling, Money Hunt's 27 rules are also available at bookstores nationwide or by ordering from our website at www.moneyhunt.com. Money Hunt is brought to you by Excite. Money Hunt is also made possible by register.com, a first step for businesses and individuals starting their presence on the internet. And Jordan Industries, acquirers and builders of entrepreneurial ventures in a variety of industries.